Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. I'm going to come back there and ask for a salawat myself. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In our conversation tonight on the application of faith in today's world, I want to talk to you about the structure of man that we hinted at yesterday. We pointed in the direction yesterday of pointing out that the condition of man is that he is a composite of two entities. Man, in his completion, is not simply flesh and blood, but also a part of him, his spirit. That he's a composite of these two items existing in one entity. When we take a look at this, it's not impossible for one item to be in two different states at the same time. For example, when we take water and we boil it, right? In the condition of boiling, that item of H2O exists in a liquid state and a gaseous state at the same time. That you can see them both existing consistently at the same time, one and the other. The same way man has two entities of which he is a composite. One is a physical self and the other is a spiritual self. And we see that these two items and how they are created is different. When we take a look at, for example, the physical self, we know that the physical self is composed of materials. When we talk about material creation and existence in this earth, we know that Allah has created material in a way for us to be able to trace back its creation. Let me explain. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Allah says, when you look at the heavens and the earth, I have put my signs there so that you can recognize me by them. You see, sometimes in faith we believe that the physical creation of man is a miracle. And it's a miracle that shouldn't be questioned. That we should just accept the fact that Allah did this and there's no way to understand it. And then we find that when faith presents this ideology that creation is something mystical and magical, forward steps science and the intellect and says, Baba, you're saying this is magic, but I can see how this was accomplished. Islam teaches us that there's no ikhtilaf between science and spirituality. As a matter of fact, the two work hand in hand. Which is why when science tells us that I can look at a human being and I can see how he was created, Islam says no problem with that. As a matter of fact, the ability that you have to see how this human being was created is a sign of Allah. The fact that I can look at the universe and I can see how the sun was formed, how the planets were formed, is a sign of Allah. I can look at the organization and the detail of the structure of this creation. I acknowledge the presence of a creator. That's why when Allah tells you, He says, look at the heavens and the earth, you will see my signs. The intellectual design is present to show you that the same way an atom comes with a heavy center and has the electrons around it, the same way you look and you take a look and you see at the systems in the skies. Take a look at the solar system with a heavy center and the planets surrounding it follow in a similar fashion. You take a look and you see that the elemental presences within a human being are coming in the same way that you see them in the rest of creation. This is my sign that I am present, which is why Allah, when He describes the human being in the physical form, when He comes to the physical form, He describes it as well too. When we take a look and we see, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ تِينٍ, and we created man from a clay. ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةٍ فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ, then we made him a seed in a firm place. ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا نُطْفَةً عَلَقَةً, then we made that seed into a clot of flesh. Then Allah continues, we made that clot of flesh, that clot into a lump of flesh. Then we formed that lump of flesh into a bone. Then we covered that bone with skin. Then we made that skin, that item, into another creation altogether. There's no problem with us understanding how the human being was formed. As a matter of fact, Allah wants you to know that this body is from my creation, and when I presented this physical form that you can interact with, that you can touch, that you can work with, that you can manipulate, I put my signs in it for you. And this is a good thing. But that's not all man is. This physical sense we can interact with, we can work with, we can operate with, we can change, we can manipulate. And Allah is telling you, I showed you the process by which this came about so that you see my design, you see my presence in this creation. But this is one aspect of man. The other aspect of man is his spirit. And we take a look and we see that the spirit is something that we can't measure, we can't weigh, we can't isolate it within the body, we can't manipulate it like an element, we can't interact with it with our five senses. There are many things we can't do with it. And there are other things we can do with it, but that's the next part of our conversation. But when we look at this soul, right, and we ask Allah, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Allah is telling you, when they ask you about the soul, say that the soul is something that is formed by the command of Allah. And we have not given you of our knowledge except but a little bit. Meaning that the idea that you should be able to create a soul or to push a soul into something or that you can manipulate a soul through physical medium is something Allah has not given to mankind. Rather, He has made it something that He did not show you the process in which it was created. He simply said, be, and it is. Like we read in Surah Yasin, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونُ. That Allah says, when I want and I command something to be, I say be, and it is. That this soul is not something that you'll be able to manipulate or sense. I have restricted that knowledge for myself. It's not for public knowledge. It's not for public consumption. That's mine. But He made man a consistent of these two parts. The problem we have, for example, in society, in our contemporary society, is we acknowledge one and ignore the other. We acknowledge the one, the physical presence of a human being. We manipulate it, we modify it, we put different clothes on it, glasses, no glasses, hair, no hair, beard, no beard, whatever we want to do with it. And we forget that man is more than just a physical presence. These two parts of a human body, or a human being, I should say, interact with one another and they work with one another. One has the ability to impact and affect the other. Now, why are we having this conversation? When we talk about, for example, applications of faith today, because I want to put it in perspective for you so that you're with me in this conversation of why this is an important conversation to have. When we talk about applications of faith today, many times our faith commands us to restrict, manipulate, work with our physical entity. The example is, for example, Ramadan. 30 days, you fast. 30 days, you stop eating. 30 days, you put a hold on everything else in your life. And you restrict your physical self. The point of that physical restriction is not just that you feel hunger. It's not just to put you on a forced diet plan. It's not just to be only one physical aspect of your personality. It's to help recenter you as an individual. Develop that awareness of a spiritual presence within you. You see, while the physical entity, because we can constantly look at it, we can constantly interact with it, is something we develop a familiarity with how to manipulate, how to work with it. The spiritual entity, because it's not manifest clearly, we can't look at it, we become ignorant of it at times. We stop paying attention to it. We get lost in other aspects of this world and this environment. Islam wants you to recognize that you have to pay attention to both sides. The same way you're nourishing yourself physically with your meals, the same way you're paying attention to your physical appearance, you have to pay attention to your spiritual appearance as well. You have to pay attention to the nourishment of your soul as well. We forget this sometimes. We get caught up in our worldly life and we look at things as a simple matter and we say, okay, it is what it is and we're done with it. But you have to recognize and you have to be conscientious that within me, I don't have to look at only my regime for my physical self. I have to look at my regime for my spiritual self. Because these two interact with one another, and at times when I am manipulating my physical self, it has an impact on my spirit. And at other times when I'm not conscientious of my spirit and taking care of it, it's bearing an impact on my physical presence. Let me give you an example. When, for example, as a spirit feels fear, fear is not a manifestation that is shown through one aspect of a human being. Someone may demonstrate fear, for example, through being dumbfounded. They don't speak when they're scared. Others may manifest fear through screaming. Others through heart palpitations. Others through a variety of means that can demonstrate fear. Fear is a spiritual condition that when it manifests physically, I see a variety of different symptoms that can be attributed to the condition of fear that's occurring within me. When my soul is afraid or when my soul is impacted, there is some physical manifestation of that impact in my body and I move around with it. The same way physically, when I go through a condition, it impacts my soul. When I'm in pain, my soul is impacted. When I am, for example, sick, my spirituality is impacted. When I am going through some form of physical discomfort or elation, it can impact my spirituality. These two items within a human being have the ability to bounce back and forth on each other. Why? Because the human being is a composite of both of these. Both of these elements are present and they work with each other. And there are instances, for example, that demonstrate the extreme in the negative of the impact of the spirit in the body. And we have to be conscientious of these things. We have to pay attention to these things. We have the narration from our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he explains, he says, one who marries his daughter to the person who drinks alcohol, he has separated the relations of the womb with his daughter. Silai Rahim. That you break Silai Rahim, you break the relation of the womb by marrying someone, your daughter, to someone who drinks alcohol. Alcohol is a physical item. The consumption of alcohol is a physical action. But the relation of the womb is a spiritual connection between two people. And it's a connection between two people that we have an obligation to maintain and protect. Our Prophet announced to us in a narration, he says, when I went in the night of Mi'raj, I saw a relation between two people, the sila, the connection between two people, that was complaining to Allah, that said that this person has neglected my status, my relationship with this other person. Remember, the consequences of breaking Sila Rahim are very extreme, and we'll mention a few of them in a moment. But Rasulullah turned to Jibreel and asked, he said, Jibreel, what is the distance between these two individuals that this relation is complaining about being neglected? Jibreel replied that they are 7 generations from one womb. The point of that statement is sometimes we think, it's not my first cousin. It's not my second cousin. It's a distant relative, who cares? This narration of Rasulullah is teaching you that even that distant relative has a right upon you. That even that distant relative is someone whose relation you have to acknowledge and take care of. To that end, I know how relations work in this community. Everybody in this room is related, I bet. We're all connected. And we have to be conscientious of that relationship. That we have to pay attention to it. That's why Rasulullah is teaching us that don't imagine that physical manifestations don't impact your spiritual status. That's what this hadith is telling us. That physical manifestation of alcohol and how bad it is and how negative it is, of what the severity of the impact it has on a person's spirituality. That it can break the relation between two individuals. The spiritual relationship between two individuals. Physically, we know the DNA doesn't change. Right? It's not like the daughter gets married and the name sometimes changes, but the DNA doesn't change. But if the characteristic of that individual in that spiritual bond is bad, it can break the other relationship. That's the significance of these relations between physical body and spirit. And we have other examples that demonstrate the importance of these spiritual relationships. When we take a look and we see the narration of Ahlul Bayt, where they say, تُخَيِّرُ لِنُتَفَتِكُمْ لِأَنَّ الْأَرْقَ دَسَّاسٌ. That be careful where you place your generations, where you place your seed, where you place your children's lineage. Because certainly the genealogy, the blood, the sweat, that history of that person plays an impact on what your children will be like. The instruction is, don't just look at the physical aspect if this is a good match. Oh, the family is good, the money is good, she's beautiful, he's handsome, and you marry. No. Pay attention to the spirituality and the characteristics that they maintain, because that spirituality, those characteristics will manifest in your next generation. Your children will bear the impact of those choices that you make. Our goal, let's back up a second here and talk about this. The goal again is to understand that you as a human being, if you're a composite of these two personalities, are you paying attention to this other aspect of your being? Are you conscientious that my spirit needs attention? That I need to be focusing on developing my spirit? That I need to be focusing on how my spirit exists and is a part of me? If it was to be mirrored in front of me today, would I be happy with my spiritual presence? If I could look at it today, would it be something that's pleasing to me or something that's disappointing? The goal is to try and understand that here's the negative aspect of understanding how negative the spirit can be affected by some of these physical actions that Allah is commanding us to stay away from. The idea that you as a human being, when you're composite of these two parts, we have a great example to demonstrate to you the epitome and the best of that individual who has the best of spirituality in the example of Sayyidatul Zahra salamullahi alayha. If you're willing to listen to some fada'il, there are some beautiful points, but I need a proper salawat if we're going to do this. There is this narration from al-Mu'mineen Aisha, where she says, I was sitting with the Prophet one day, and Sayyidah Zahra entered the room. Rasulullah stood up from his place, kissed Fatima, and sat her in his own place and location. Aisha turned to Rasulullah and she says, this Fatima is no longer a child. Don't you exceed the bounds of greeting her like this? You are Rasulullah. She's a woman. Why are you making yourself move and giving her your position? Rasulullah says, I have not exceeded the bounds. Aisha, you don't understand what is Fatima. He says, when I went in Mi'raj to the heavens, Jibreel gave me an apple. I ate from that apple. And then when I came back to this earth, Fatima was conceived. Fatima is born from the fruit of Jannah. Her status is such that she is unlike anyone else. This is why she was referred to as Hawr al-Insiyya, the heavenly creation in human manifestation. That Rasulullah used to say, he says, whenever I miss the smell of heaven, I smell Fatima to remind me of heaven. Sayyidah Zahra is that personality who Allah kept her pure by not putting her spirit or seed in the backbone of Adam. This is why for the conception of Sayyidah Zahra is the consumption of the fruit of heaven, because her spirit was kept separate from all of the filth and difficulties that pass through humanity. Which is why we know her status to be known as Tahira Mutahhara, that she is the one who is pure herself and a source of purification. That Allah selected that Sayyidah Zahra should be the one who would unify the nur of Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. To produce the progeny of Ali Muhammad. This is why our 8th Imam makes the statement. He says, نحن حجة الله على الأرض وفاطمة حجة علينا. That we are the authority of Allah on this earth, and our mother Fatima is the authority over us. That the impact of the necessity of the purity of Sayyidah Zahra is demonstrated through these characteristics, that Allah chose her to be the source and spring of purification for the A'immah alayhimus salam. That spirituality and the purity of spirituality is something so specific that we have to pay attention to it, because Allah gave us an example of what is the best kind of purification, what is the best kind of the source of purity in Sayyidah Zahra. So, you and I, we fall in the scale somewhere where we are either above the worst but less than the best. So the question comes, how do I now, if I acknowledge that there is a way for me to increase the spirituality and this presence of spirituality in myself, how do I do it? What is the process for me as an individual to take account of this presence within myself and to train it? One of the very apparent fashions is the performance of the ahkam and the wajibat that Allah has dictated us to perform. That by continuing to keep ourselves attached to these responsibilities and obligations that we refer to, right? Salat, Saum, Hajj, Zakat. These activities Allah has put in us so that while it may have a physical feature to it, it is training for the spiritual presence within the body. That this will impact you and train you, right? And we know this because the one who created us gave us the manual. The one who created us was aware that a human being consists of two portions. Not just a physical, but also a spiritual. So whatever He gave us in the manual is a process through which we train both aspects of our personality. The second aspect that's recommended that we should be developing, and how we go back and we refocus, is by remembering our graves. Alaykum bihadim al-ladhat. I enjoin upon you to be conscientious of the destroyer of desires. This is a statement by our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in which he is teaching us, he is telling you that you see, you as a human being, your body and your presence is always swinging between two systems of desire. One is your spiritual desire. The other is your physical desires. When, for example, we want the Maserati, the Bugatti, the fancy cars, the Ferrari, it's my physical desire. When I want, for example, for people to see me in a particular light and respect me, it's my physical desire. When I want the big house, It's my physical desire. All of these aspects are something that within us, our physical presence is calling to them because we can acknowledge and see the material presence before us. We want that material satisfaction. The other side of us that tells us to be someone who has piety, someone who stays quiet when he's disrespected, for example, someone who, for example, shows kindness even when it will not be repaid back to him, someone who has simplicity of life. These are our spiritual desires. And we're stuck in this format that we're constantly competing between these two. And when we're competing between these two, and that physical desire begins to overpower you, when it becomes that I have no control or I have less control than I'd like in managing my physical desires, and we go to the Prophet and we ask him for guidance, he gives the guidance. Go to the destroyer of desires. The destroyer of desires is your grave. Visit the graveyards. Go sit by a grave. When you find yourself so caught up in this world, or you're so focused on what my next salary should be, or my next business should be, or how much money I should have, or what the next great thing that I need to have in my life, go to the graveyard. Look at everyone in that graveyard. Read every tombstone. Read every marker. Look at every person. Say salam to those people. And acknowledge, what did they take with them? What did they have with them when they left this world? What happened to their houses? What happened to their businesses? What happened to those people that they were offended by? What happened to those people that they were too proud to say salam to? What was left? Our Prophet is teaching us that this world is temporary. Your physical desires and satisfactions are a temporary pleasure. Acknowledge that this world ends. When you acknowledge that this world ends and you keep that as a reminder for yourself that my time here is going to end, you begin to control those physical desires, those material desires that we have. And you swing back to the spiritual desires. And you begin to acknowledge the fact that this time will pass me. These days will go. Today I came to the graveyard by my choice. Tomorrow, what if I'm brought here? Today I chose to be here. Today I chose where I stand and where I sit. Tomorrow the question will be, where will those who are left behind place me? That remembrance of the grave is something that will help you control how to manage this physical desire and focus on your spiritual development. That remembrance of the grave is something that will bring you away from the environment that we are stuck in on a day-to-day basis. It'll bring you to a different level of understanding. It'll bring back your focus. It'll bring you back to the center and allow you now to focus on yourself and make decisions that now when you think about that decision, let me ask, will my decision finish with my life in this world? Or will there be some benefit to it afterwards? You see, man has a desire for fulfillment. He has a desire to feel pleasure. The easiest pleasure that we have is a physical desire and a physical pleasure that when we satisfy it, we feel happy. Ask somebody with a compulsion. When they fulfill the compulsion, they feel happy for a little while. But that happiness doesn't last. After a short period of time, they have to do it again to feel the same pleasure. Spiritual satisfaction is something different. Intellectual satisfaction is something different. For example, an intellectual satisfaction is, for example, when I learn to solve a new kind of math problem, or I find a solution to a difficulty that I couldn't otherwise think of, and I learn and I train myself in a new way, and I learn something new. That satisfaction lasts much longer. It stays much longer with a human being than a physical satisfaction, right? Think of the best pizza you've ever had in your life. Can you taste it now? No. It was something you enjoyed for a while it was in your mouth, and that was the end of it. Think of, on the other hand, for example, when you learn to read. Think of, for example, when you learn to speak another language. When you attained your degree. that satisfaction stays much longer. It's something that can be recalled and appreciated. It's something that can be grown towards. Our goal is that we continuously shift our focus from our physical satisfactions and the satisfaction of a physical desire to the intellectual desire. We want to become people who can sacrifice the physical in the interest that there is something better to attain with it. That we can go ahead and we can make a sacrifice from a physical satisfaction with the principle and the understanding that there'll be something better in the end for me in the long term. Where do we see this example? We see this example from the Ahlul Bayt. In the verse that we started with this recitation in this discussion of ours, we see the example of the Ahlul Bayt, where Imam Hassan and Imam Husein alayhimus salam fall ill in their youth. And when they fall ill, Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidah Zahra take a nadhar. They take an oath that, "Oh Allah, should you cure our children from this sickness, we will fast for you for 3 days, in thanks to you for what you have given us." The same way, remember that as you go through difficulties in life, or you find challenges in life, one of the ways that you seek the assistance of Allah is by taking a nadhar. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing because it brings you back to your focus that it is Allah who helps you. It is Allah who fulfills your needs. And by turning back to Him, you are relying on Him rather than relying on yourself or what you assume you have the ability to perform. So they make a nadhar. "Oh Allah, if Hassanain are cured from their sickness, we will fast for 3 days." And alhamdulillah, Imam Hassan and Imam Husain are cured from that illness. In the house at that time is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidah Zahra, Fidda, and the 2 children. When Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidah Zahra see that the 2 children have been cured, they thank Allah and they make their intention to fast. Fidda joins the fast, and Imam Hassan and Imam Husain also join the fast. The first day that they fast, bread is made for them to eat, and comes to the door a poor person. And when this poor person comes to the door, he comes and he says, "I'm hungry, I desire food. Do you have any food in the house?" The Ahlul Bayt turn and say, "This is the food that we made today to open our fast. Here, you take it." The example is, the physical desire was for satisfying and satiating that hunger. The spiritual satisfaction was that Allah loves someone who gives from himself to one who is needy. They went and forwent their physical desire to be able to fulfill that spiritual desire of helping someone for the sake of Allah. And so they opened their fast with water, and the next day came, and again, because they had made another, they fasted again. The second day they fasted, an orphan came to the door. The food that was made, they said, "You're an orphan, here, take this." And they gave the orphan the food. The third day, a prisoner came, and the prisoner came in search of food, and they gave him the food that they had made that day. Look at how Allah describes this incident in the Quran. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا يَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. That they are those who feed for the sake out of the love of Allah to the poor person, to the orphan, to the prisoner. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شَكُورًا. They reply that they say, "Certainly we have fed you, seeking the face of Allah." What is the face of Allah? The face of Allah is His mercy that He looks towards to humanity with. The face of Allah is His mercy that He shows to humanity, and He shows them kindness. And the demonstration is that look what they're doing. They say, "We don't want any reward from you and we don't want any thanks from you. All we want is the pleasure of Allah, showing to us and demonstrating to us that this is the ideal example of someone who can look past the worldly and the physical desire for the spiritual desire. Because the only desire that they had was the pleasure of Allah, not even the thanks or appreciation from the people that they fed. Now look at you and I as an example in contrast, right? A charity comes, a poor person comes, we give them £5, we give them £10. I'm using pounds, right? I'm an American, I should be saying dollars, but we give them some amount of money, or we give someone who's needy some amount of money, and then we say, did you see? He didn't even say thank you. He didn't even appreciate what I did for him. And most of the time when we're giving, think about it, when we give and we give charity, we give things that are simple for us, that are easy for us. I have some change and some coins in my pocket, let me give those. I need to make sure I have enough for my latte tomorrow, so I can give a couple of pounds, but I can't give more than that. We're not ready sometimes to make the sacrifice of our physical pleasure to give for the sake of Allah. The ideal example is where we can even give away that which is necessary for us to exist simply for the pleasure of Allah. That's why Allah puts this parable forward, that He says, if you want to see what is the best that you can become in being aware of your spirituality and minimizing your physical desires, look at the example of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. This idea and how it applies to us today is each one of us has a phase of development in our faith. That when you find a contrast between the demand of Allah on your time and your personal desires of your time, focus for a minute and look at the differentiation of the consequence of what will come forward. Focus on what is the end goal that I will achieve by the crossroads and the conclusions that I have available to me. What will I accomplish through this process? On a day-to-day basis, we're faced by these challenges in many different formats. Sometimes it's a question of, as I'm driving down the road and I see someone broken down on the side of the road, what if I stop to assist that person? Sometimes it's a question that, for example, today is mustahab to fast, for example. What are the consequences of me fasting? I have 3 meetings to go to, and I'm going to have a terrible headache if I don't have my morning coffee. I won't fast today. We didn't even think about the spiritual consequence of that decision. What are the benefits we would have attained? What is that spiritual level of satisfaction we would have attained through this process of making sacrifices in our material environment? The goal that we want to develop is that we begin the process of acknowledging and weighing the differences, that what am I doing to my spiritual presence? Am I acknowledging it? Am I accounting for it? Am I making sure that some part of my day and my effort is associated with improving and developing this part of my personality, of my being? Or am I completely focused on the cut of my beard, the style of my hair, the type of shoes that I wear, the belt that I wear, the jacket that I wear, the words that I use in my speech to show my eloquence, the people who I say salam to and I don't say salam to, the businesses that I perform, the bank balance that I have, the car that I drive? Are we balancing between these two aspects of our personality? Are we balancing with the spiritual side of who we are as an individual? What do we need to devote to this aspect of us to become a better person? These are the aspects that we want to develop, and we're going to continue these conversations of talking about what it is to improve ourselves as an individual. How do we become conscientious and aware of our behavior and our personality? But tonight, we want to mention that tonight is the second night of Muharram. This is the night that is associated with the entering of Abu Abdullah and his group of companions into the land of Karbala. That on this day, it was Abu Abdullah, as he was riding on his horse, that for a moment his eyes became closed. And when they closed, he opened his eyes and in a sorrowful voice called out, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." From behind there is a young man who comes forward. And this young man is amongst the most beautiful of personalities present. He comes forward and he says, "Oh father, has something happened? Is something wrong? I hear you call out in a sorrowful tone. Is there something wrong, father?" Abu Abdullah answers, he says, "No." He says, "I have found out that we have come to that place where we will offer our final sacrifice, where our blood will be spilled on this earth, that we will go through trials and tribulations on this land." And there are a number of narrations that explain this, but this young man, he says, "Oh father, may I ask you a question?" "Oh Akbar, ask me. What will you ask me?" "Will we not be on the path of truth when we leave this world?" "Yes, Akbar, we will be on the path of truth and haqq." "Then father, what do we have to worry about?" This was the introduction that Ali and Al-Akbar had to the field of Karbala, but the field of Karbala was not something foreign to the Ahlul Bayt. We see Salama, she narrates, she says, "One day I entered the house and I saw Rasulullah weeping bitterly. I said, 'What made you cry, O Rasulullah?' He says, 'Jibreel has come to me and he has told me of the sacrifice of my son Husein.' Salama, would you like to see the land upon which the sacrifice of Husein will be made?" Salama said, "Yes." Rasulullah motioned with his hand and the land of Karbala came before us. Rasulullah said, Salama, save this sand. The day that it turns to blood, know that my Husein has been martyred in the worst of fashions. We see that Amir al-Mu'mineen showed us about Karbala. When the Ibn Abbas narrates, we were on our way back from Siffin, and on our way back, at a moment I saw my master Amir al-Mu'mineen. It was as if he threw himself from the horse. When he went down to the ground, I could see my master kissing the dirt of the ground. I asked him, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, what stopped you on this land?" He says, "Ibn Abbas, you don't know. This is the land of difficulties and sorrows. This is the land of Karbala. This is the land where my Husein will be martyred." Ibn Abbas narrates, he says, "It was as if I saw Amir al-Mu'mineen lifting the dirt and rubbing it into his cheeks." "O Ibn Abbas, the blood of my Husein will be mixed with this sand soon." This is that land of Karbala that we wait and we see now that they have come to this land, and now Imam Husein gives the command for the unpacking of the tents. He commands that the people should be prepared now and that they should make their rest. And one of the commands he gives, he says, "O Abbas, take the responsibility of Zainab to ensure that you construct the tent and bring her to her tent." This is that same Zainab who not long ago, when she left the city of Medina, there were all of these children and her brothers and the men of the Banu Hashim who stood around that when Zainab should leave her house, her rida is our respect and our honor. From one side there was Akbar, from another side there was Abbas, from another side there were the children of the Banu Hashim, from one side came Qasim. All of these young men of the Banu Hashim came and said, "This is the respect of our family, the honor of our family, Sayyidah Zainab." Now she has come to Karbala, and again, when it came time for her to dismount, from one side came Abbas, "Sister, let me take you to the tents. Let me take you in the protection to the security and safety of the tents." From another side came Akbar. From another side came all of the youth of Banu Hashim. But this protection, this safety, this sanctuary in the field of Karbala is but a temporary pleasure. There will come the day of the 11th of Muharram, and there will be Zainab who has no more tents. There is no more Abbas. And when she is told to mount, she turns to Al-Qama and calls out, "Oh brother Abbas, where are you now? Why do you not help your sister mount the camel now? O youth of Banu Hashim, why do you not come to me now when Zainab is in a state of difficulty and there is no one here for her but the enemies?" This is that day that started the announcement of difficulties on Ali Muhammad. This is the day upon which we weep for the entrance to Karbala. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. ماتم حسين.